Hey.
Howdy.
We are going to get in trouble tonight.
Before we get started, do you know today's Nicki Minaj's birthday?
Happy birthday, Nicki.
Yep.
According to Jack, the perfume nationalist, she is the greatest rapper of her generation.
Easily, yeah. It took me a while to get into her catalog, but it's absolutely true. Nobody's more creative. Yeah. Nobody's more boundary pushing. Nobody's more skilled. Yeah.
I mean, just go listen to her verse on Monster.
Yeah.
That alone is staggering, and she completely demolishes all the other like top name rappers on that song. It's yeah. I like Nicki. I like her spirit too, for sure.
Yeah. If the Republicans were smart, they'd be pushing her into politics.
Yeah? You think she's based?
She was the one who pushed back against vaccine censorship. Remember her cousin had something wrong with his testicles, and it was right after he got vaccinated. And I think that's what it was. Like her cousin's testicles swole up, and she's like, "Hey, I'm just letting you know, be careful out there. If you got the vaccine, just be careful." And then that led to this whole wave of censorship against her.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah. Well, yeah. Happy birthday to the Queen.
Queen Bee. And she's got some fascist imagery behind her. She's another rapper who really likes the uniforms.
Do we all need to have fascist imagery behind us? Mm-hmm. Why is this a trend?
They won. As Jack Mason says, all art is fascist. Art forces its vision upon you and doesn't care what you think.
Oh.
Yeah.
All art is fascist?
Well, good art is fascist.
We've name checked Jack twice already.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's often right. Mm-hmm. You know, and it's funny. I was going to tweet this, but of all the guests I've had on the show, which is now like 200 plus, he is the one who I think about the most often in terms of having an analysis or a critique that I think about every day. I mean, when I'm walking around, I think about sort of the culture of neoliberalism a lot. And so Jack's in my head, you know, almost every day. It's an impressive thing that he's done. And it's odd that he has such a small audience. He also gets attacked so much he's getting attacked increasingly, you know, by fairly big name people on Twitter too. Pedro Gonzalez, that kind of asshole who's kind of at the Claremont Institute, I think, and he's like this sort of major neo-conservative type or paleo-neo, I don't know, whatever he is, paleo-neo-conservative dickhead. But yeah, he likes to go after Jack in nasty ways.
Well, the nice thing about they go after Jack because he's effective, because he's charming and effective. They don't go after the bad, dangerous people. They go after the people who can actually communicate well and who break the matrix, you know.
I mean, Jack also talks a humongous amount of shit too about people, so it's not he's not entirely innocent. But you know, I love the way he does it. He makes me laugh every time.
Yeah, for sure. I guess you want to get started talking about Brittney.
So yeah, there's just so much going on, and what is really shocking, actually, I think, about the news cycle this week is how many major central events in the world across the globe are connected.
Yes.
Intimately connected. And how, and the ways in which they're connected is secret. You know, they've been kept secret until, you know, now maybe, but there's so many things that are interconnected that we don't often think about. But Twitter, Ukraine, COVID, Brittney Griner, they're all connected. It's incredible. And there might be just a handful of actors behind all of this. This is what a time to be a conspiracy theorist. This is the heyday of conspiracy theorists. I mean, I wish I were one of those conspiracy theorists because I'd be, you know, making a lot of money out there. But they're getting proved right over and over and over again. But yeah, let's get into it. Brittney. So, oh, Lord have mercy. What's your take?
Well, I guess I'm shocked to learn that there's this organization where women play basketball professionally. That was news to me this week.
Yeah, there shouldn't be. They should get rid of that.
Yeah. For anybody out there, without Googling, tell me, what team does Brittney Griner play for?
Is it Phoenix?
I honestly don't know. I didn't Google it.
I think it's the Phoenix Mercury. Boy, that's amazing that I even have a guess at that. But yeah,
I think New York, but I'm not sure.
The WNBA. So I love women fighters. I love the women's MMA and boxing a lot, and a lot of fans of MMA are huge fans of women's fighting, which is interesting because not in most sports it doesn't really work. Most sports, the women's side is not so exciting. I'd say tennis is one exception. Basketball is not an exception. Basketball played by women is just much more boring. And that is why they don't make as much money, because very few people want to pay money to see women play basketball. But of course, they're demanding equal pay with NBA players, which is just hilarious. As amazing a player as Brittney Griner is, I want to say, for a woman, compare her to the best players in the NBA, and it's not. I mean, she wouldn't score a point against LeBron James in a one-on-one game. She wouldn't score a single point. So, yeah, it's but anyway, on to the more important issue here. Has to do with geopolitics, really, but it also has to do with cultural politics, of course, because I think, and this is certainly what the right wing has been screaming about all day today, I think it's clear that she was released because she's a black, lesbian, and basically woke, or at least reads from the woke script, and has said a lot of sort of anti-American things and talked about white supremacy, etc. And, you know, so it's playing to the base, I guess. Although, I mean, the White House is insisting that they didn't get that other guy who, Paul Whelan, who is accused of espionage by Russia and has been in prison in Russia for 4 years because of that. They're saying that they simply tried as hard as they could to get him out, but Russia's not budging because it's a different kind of case, which is it's an espionage case, which is true. That is a fundamentally different case. I mean, I could actually see why Russia would be willing to give up Griner on a weed charge and not this guy they think at least is a spy or has been a spy. And, you know, Russia, like, contrary to popular belief these days, like, Russia is not run by a bunch of sadists who are interested only in hurting people. They have legitimate concerns about the West, security concerns about the West encroaching on their borders, and the West building up the militaries on their border, and the West doing all sorts of espionage and sabotage against them. Nord Stream is just the latest example of that, or not even the latest. There's been more since then. Missiles just flew hundreds of miles into Russia and killed 4 people, and almost blew up tactical strategic bombers at a Russian airbase that carry nuclear weapons. And if we think that the United States did not authorize that strike, that missile strike, or at least knew something about it, I mean, it's possible that Ukraine did something rogue, but everyone's been saying since day one that the Ukraine military does nothing major without the okay from the State Department and the CIA.
Well, regardless, how do they get the drones to carry a missile hundreds of miles into Russia's border? That's advanced technology that they got with aid from the West. Yeah.
It's even better than that. Yeah. So the drones that were, or the drone that was used, is from the 1970s.
Really? I didn't see that.
1970s Soviet designed drone. 70s. Mm-hmm. It flies in a straight line. It can't move. It can't turn at all. It's just this. It's basically just a long missile. Okay. Yeah. So the fact that Russia, well, yeah, I mean, Russia's air defense is obviously, they're going to have to revamp the shit out of that stuff. And I'm sure their heads are rolling as we speak in the Kremlin because of this. But that's not the story. The story is that Ukraine would do this. I mean, I can somewhat understand Ukraine doing it because they're at war with Russia. But the United States, if the United States had anything to do with this at all, even if they were just aware of it happening before it happened, I can't think of anything more provocative than that. I mean, it is essentially a missile, technically a drone, but it's a missile into hundreds of miles into Russian space and attempting to blow up a military facility that has nuclear warheads in it. If that's not going to start World War III, I don't know what will. And this might be the most concerning thing so far in the war for me. the most escalatory, provocative thing, the thing that brings us closer to World War III than anything, maybe in my lifetime, since the missile crisis of the 1960s. Yeah, but anyway, back to Brittney. We'll get to that in a second, the Ukraine war, because there's a lot more to be said about that. But Brittney, you know, at first I understood the sort of right-wing outrage that, you know, this America hater, not that I care about that, but this America hater gets released, and while this patriotic Marine is continuing to do time in a Soviet or a Russian gulag. Now the thing is, you look up Paul Whelan's history, he was dishonorably discharged. He was, I believe, he was convicted, court-martialed and convicted for larceny, like major larceny within the Marines, within the military, and he was kicked out of the military. And that's why the CIA right now is totally denying that they employed him, that he was working for them. They said, no, the CIA would never hire anyone with his military record to do this. Who knows? Who knows? I find the whole thing just very sad and very upsetting. I'm glad Brittney Griner is free. I'm not a fan of her, but of course I want no one to be in prison for cannabis. You know, then again, it is the law in Russia, and she knew what the law was, you know. I mean, I still want her free, but yeah, it's just gross. The whole thing is sad and gross.
Yeah. Well, since you were talking, it came to mind. Let's imagine for a second that Russia sees the United States as an adversary, okay? And that in this imaginary world, they want to sow discord in the United States. Wouldn't releasing an America hater and keeping a patriotic Marine help sow division in the United States, you know?
Well, that's what Russia's always accused of doing. All that stuff to me is just so silly, though. I mean, sure, Russia put up a few Facebook ads that are absurd looking, that no one took seriously, that sort of encourages people in America to get upset about racism and things like that, you know, with the idea that it will cause fighting in the streets. That's not why we had riots in 2020, because of Russian interference. That is very clear. It's insulting to suggest otherwise. Have they done similar things? I mean, this is what these sort of NATO proponents are always talking about, how Russia's always trying to sow discord in the West. I've never really seen evidence for them doing that, accomplishing it in any serious way. They're certainly not. We know they weren't responsible for the rise of Trump, which sowed more discord than anything else in American history. That's been proven that they had little to nothing to do with that. But I don't know. What do you think?
Well, like Dugin talks about how Russian oligarchs basically funded both sides of the 2016 campaign. And that, yeah, that in general, like I think internationally, there's like bot farms and click farms and operations happening, whether it's official government intelligence or just some people with a lot of money going rogue. I definitely think that some people out there definitely want to sow discord. And like the old Facebook pages, like there were a lot of Facebook pages that were Black Lives Matter Facebook pages that were complete bots. Some of them were set up in Australia. Some of them were set up in Russia. Some of them were set up in China. So yeah, this stuff is definitely happening.
Oh yeah, but it's so minor. I think it's insignificant. That's all.
I do think it is minor, but I could see how if I were Putin, that this might be like a 3D chess move.
Yeah. Again, I've not seen anything coming out of Russia in terms of propaganda that's been at all effective among Americans. Sure. I mean, those ads or those cartoons that they ran in 2016 on Facebook, which I think they spent a total of $50 grand on.
Yeah, it's tens of thousands of dollars. It's
I think it was $50 grand. Yeah. I mean, they look like sixth graders made them too. I mean, no one took those things seriously at all. And I guess this is the most important thing. This is what every government does in the world.
Yes.
And the United States was the first to do it and has been doing it for 100 years. You know, very advanced espionage and propaganda activities all across the world, and especially against Russia and the Soviet Union.
Well, for me, the big thing about the Brittney Griner story is that her freedom was in exchange for the freedom of a comic book villain in Victor Bout, the Merchant of Death, one of the most dangerous arms dealers ever.
Yeah, right. And right. So we get Biden and Kamala Harris with this awesome photo op with Brittany's wife in the White House, right? Looks good for them. The base loves it, eats it up. Oh, they're helping a black lesbian. Also, liberals love female athletes a lot. Like they're really into like the women's soccer team and they're into the WNBA, at least, nominally. They don't actually watch the games, but they love the idea of it, of these badass women athletes. So they get that. But what we get is a major arms dealer running around free, flooding, distributing lethal weapons across the world.
Okay. A Russian arms dealer.
Russian.
Yeah.
Any arms dealer I'm kind of nervous about, frankly.
Yeah, but for me, the hypocrisy of these liberals to while they're saying that Ukraine is the #1 issue, to give an arms dealer to the Russian government in exchange for an entertainer that nobody actually watches is so comical in the hypocrisy.
Right. Yeah. Russia is the #1 threat to freedom and democracy. But here's your big weapons guy. We'll let him go. No problem. No problem.
Yeah. Yeah. A buddy of mine made a meme real quick talking about the warm reception that this guy is going to get once the Russian oligarchs see him come back. Obviously, I play it. Yeah.
Woohoo! Although I don't know how much he does for the government. I don't really know about this guy too much, but Russia has not a lot of problem producing weapons. I mean, this is what they're known for, being good at. They apparently there's railroad lines, running all the way up to the Ukraine border and into Ukraine that are just nonstop flows of artillery pieces and missiles and tanks, and they've always been good at this. They've always been good at producing a lot of weapons and getting it to the front quickly.
He was the guy who brought all the Soviet surplus stuff basically to Africa, to Liberia and all those nations.
Okay.
They were having their conflicts. Yeah.
Nice. What a job.
Yeah. Okay. We got to continue the Ye news, even though this
you're gonna make me.
I'm gonna make you.
Okay. No, I have more to say. I have more to say about Ye.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's all right.
And because of Jack, basically.
Jack again?
Yeah. He tweeted twice about this issue. He said, 1, if you're counter signaling Elon, making Twitter a more free place, because Elon banned Ye, and and Ye never violated the terms of service, the new terms of service.
Right.
Elon said it was a incitement to violence. What Ye posted was a logo, was a symbol that was used by a 1970s UFO sex cult that contained a swastika, not just a normal swastika, a Hindu swastika, inside a Star of David. So he's making a joke about unity. He's not inciting anybody to violence. It just pissed Elon off. And basically, Jack was saying, hey, I'm with Elon on this one. He's made Twitter way better. Ye's being a child.
Oh.
A couple days later, Jack said, in retrospect, Ye has brought back a joie de vivre to shitposting that he hasn't seen in a long time. And that he's got to hand it to Ye for making the internet a fun place again.
A joie de vivre.
Yeah.
Okay. It's not exactly what I would say. I think, you kind of schooled me on this issue when we talked after the last show. Your argument is that Ye expanded the Overton window by talking a bunch of silly nonsense. But I guess it wasn't just silly nonsense, actually. It was sort of saying, I think I took him to mean that we should talk about everything. We should be curious and interested and open to discussion about everything, including Hitler. And there has never been a more Thad Russell statement made by anyone. This is exactly who I am and what I stand for. So that's great. And I think he did do that. He might have even broken the Overton window, I suppose, because, if you can say good things about Hitler on major platforms, then it's a wide open for everyone.
Well, here's the thing. He didn't say it on major platforms. Well, he kind of did on major platforms, but every platform shut him down as he was doing it.
Well, Tim Pool and Alex Jones are pretty major platforms.
Okay, fair enough. By that definition, yes.
Sure.
But, okay, yeah.
I mean, they're way bigger than CNN.
True.
Way bigger.
Yes. But, yeah, you're right about that.
I mean, they're still, oddly enough, they're still considered to be alternative platforms, but
Yes.
their audiences are massively bigger than CNN and the New York Times probably combined.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Alex Jones has said that, he's shown that he's gotten audiences as big as a Super Bowl.
Yeah, in his heyday about 10 years ago, that's the numbers he was doing.
Yeah, it's huge, yeah. Mm-hmm. I wanted to say something about Ye, which I'm going to admit I borrowed this from Robert Barnes, who's a quite, I think, brilliant analyst of such things. Barnes noticed, and I kind of saw it, but I, like most people, I kind of filed it away in the back of my head. Ye starts off the interview with, is it Poole or Alex Jones? I think it's Tim Pool, that one, talking about how I think the very first thing he says basically is that he has just been notified that he owes $50 million to the IRS, and that's a criminal case. That's a criminal level, which means he might not even have the option to pay it back. He might just have to go to prison for this, and he could do years. I mean, according to Barnes, if you owe $50 million, you're looking at 10 to 20 years in prison. So that, I mean, that could make a man crazy right there. If I were looking at that, if I were facing that, I'd be pretty wild, I'd be in a wounded way. And I think he did look wounded.
Oh,
and he's
totally.
Clearly unwell but wounded and probably very, very scared.
Well, here's another thing.
And now that he has no friends, he's also, burning all these bridges with the whole world. I mean, from his ex-wife to all of his friends to the whole media to, all black people, pretty much.
Did you see his divorce case?
Maybe.
He has to pay $200,000.
Oh yeah,
a month to his ex-wife, who he spent the last 10 years helping make a billionaire.
Well, I mean, Kim's pretty much self-made, though, isn't she?
To some extent, yes, but she doesn't get to billionaire status without Ye.
You don't think?
No. Ye opened the doors for her in the fashion industry with design. Yeah, I think, and with investing, I think Ye's behind a ton of that. Like he really made it a joint family operation.
Yeah. Now, okay, but he's clearly in great distress, and for very good reason. And this is sort of, extraordinary stress that he's under here. I mean, very few people are looking at that kind of punishment from the government. Now, how he connects Jews to all this, that's a bit unclear to me. I mean, except that it's a financial issue, Jews historically. But I mean, the Jews don't run the IRS. I'm not even sure who the head of the IRS is. I don't think he's Jewish. But it's not a Jewish organization in any way. It never has been accused of being a Jewish front. But yeah, I think that might be what's underneath a lot of this with Kanye, what's going on now. That he's facing extraordinary persecution in that way. I mean, being called an anti-Semite and being kicked off Twitter is nothing compared to what he's looking at from the federal government. Yeah. And I think we should spend more time looking at that kind of thing. But yeah. I mean, is there more to be said about this?
I mean, yes, in that like he had 35 million Twitter followers. He has 18 million Instagram followers. And I'm looking at polls that Ye fans are conducting. Like, are you still a fan of his? And it's about 80-20. So 80% of his fans are still sticking with him. So that's tens of millions of people still sticking with this guy. And they are following him down the rabbit hole. Like, he is their Virgil to Dante's Inferno of internet subculture. Like, he started on LeBron James's podcast. That got shut down. He went to Drink Champs on Noriega. That got shut down. He went to Piers Morgan. That wasn't super productive. Then he went to Lex Friedman. And, he felt like Lex Friedman lectured him and kind of babied him and bullied him a little bit. Then he went to Tim Pool. He stormed off of Tim Pool. Then he does 3 hours of performance art on Alex Jones in the most punk rock, crazy performance that has ever happened. Then he goes, all while having Milo Yiannopoulos and Nick Fuentes as his advisors. So then he goes on censored.tv to get interviewed by Gavin. So imagine the revenue coming into censored.tv right now because people are curious about this interview. And then next he was going to do some more mainstream stuff like Aiden Ross. So I want to show you who Aiden Ross is, and Adam 22, but that got canceled. But yeah, he's educating the masses in the alternative space by dragging him along with him.
Oh, I see. He's like taking us a tour of alternative media.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I know about Adam 22. He came across my radar recently. Interesting. He's a porn star, like an active porn star who has a huge podcast.
Yeah, he started as a hip hop interview guy, and then his girl was a porn star, and then
No, but he does a lot of porn.
Yeah. I mean, it's a side hustle for him, but it's a very, very big one.
And don't they like have sex with their guests too?
Yeah, that's the whole format is like half podcast, half fucking. It's
nice. Yeah, and that's on camera. Like you watch the interview and then you watch them fuck.
Yes. The interview takes over the plot that used to happen.
Oh.
Yeah. It's kind of innovative. Like you get to know the person. You know?
Fascinating format.
It's like a date. Yeah. It's
yeah. We can think about that. I mean, if you're pitching this, you know, I will entertain it. We have to think about the guest list for that, but I'm very particular about guests.
No, I know your taste at this point.
Do you? Okay. You know some tastes. That's true.
Yeah.
Well, all right, let's get into the meat of some shit here.
Okay. Well, real quick, do you know who Aiden Ross is?
No. Might have heard the name.
Okay. Aiden Ross is I think he's 22. He's a Twitch streamer. He plays 2K, so he plays basketball video games. And then LeBron James's son was a fan of his, and then so he got on with Bronny, and then he got LeBron on, and then yada yada yada. Oh, and the porn conversation is a big one to have too, because Ye is talking about how porn destroyed his marriage, and the right wing wants to ban porn. So this is a big conversation to have too. But I wanted to show you the caliber of mind that Aiden Ross is, and that.
Can we just pause for a second? I just want to note something. Did I hear this right? So this guy is a professional video game player who specializes in playing Y2K, which is a basketball video game. And the greatest basketball player's son is a fan of him.
Yes.
Of the video game player.
Yes.
Okay. Just want to clarify that.
I'm going to play you a clip that shows you his political knowledge. And before you judge him, do you live in a mansion like he lives in? Do you make millions of dollars for playing video games all day? And do you have every OnlyFans girl like begging to be on your platform to spread? Because like all these content creators, they always sneak in OnlyFans girls, A, because it gives them attention, and B, because it gives the OnlyFans girls attention. So that's the hustle. So
sounds perfect.
Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, Aiden Ross.
Okay. What does a fascist mean? It means you are a far right authorization on ultra analyst political ideology movement characterized by dictator leadership, centralized autocracy, militarism, forcible suppression of opposition. So I don't know what that means, bro. I swear to God. I don't know what the fuck a fascism is. I don't know what the fuck that is. Benito Mussolini and Giviante Gentile and Jason Stanley. Like, who the fuck are these people, bro? Never heard of my fucking life. What is an example of a fascist? Yo! All right, bro. See what I'm saying, chat? Like, this is why I don't fuck with y'all, bro. Like, dude, like, this is what the fuck I don't... Bro, I don't fuck with y'all, bro. I do not fuck with you guys, bro.
Okay. First thing we got to talk about is that he appears to be living in a corporate office building, and he needs much more soft surfaces. He's a lot of bouncing, he's got some audio problems there, some acoustics problems. I don't know why people choose to live in places like that. That looks utterly cold and hard and unwelcoming. But I will say, he's not good at reading. Also, so that's two criticisms of Aiden here. Why? And I like the name check of Jason Stanley, but why else is this significant to you?
Oh, this was the guy who's supposedly going to be, he was going to talk Ye off the cliff, or like, he was like the Jewish like he's Jewish himself, and he was going to be like, hey, I'm a young guy, I'm a fan of yours, let's talk this out, do you really hate us? And like, he really is on the pulse of the culture, I think. Like, he is Gen Z to me. Like that is Gen Z.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
That's too bad. Then I'm going to end it all, because if that's our future, I mean, he doesn't even know anything at all. I mean, he doesn't know words. He doesn't know how to read.
Yeah.
Ultra nationalist.
But
he's never heard of Mussolini. He's never heard of Mussolini. What does that mean, man? Like, how are we going to function as a society if we don't have some common knowledge?
Yeah. And in relation to Ye, Alex Jones was saying this, because Alex Jones does not fuck with the Nazi shit. Alex Jones does not. So he was saying about Ye, it appears that Ye is an idiot savant who may not have the highest IQ, but is incredibly creatively smart, and does not have a 5th grade education about the Holocaust. And in the same breath, I think somebody as dumb as Aiden Ross can be smart as well in other ways.
Okay. I mean, he doesn't have a 5th grade education but on the Holocaust, but he has no more than a 6th grade education on the Holocaust. Does he? Kanye doesn't know anything.
No.
Yeah. Well, this is all very despairing to me. I don't see a future for our country, for our society, for the world, or for me, if this is who's going to be leading us.
Yeah. And
I mean, he's never heard of Mussolini. I mean, I hope he's heard of Hitler. He's Jewish. But you can't read words like ultranationalist. You can't read autocracy. You can't even begin to pronounce those words. I don't know. I'm stuck on this. Maybe I'm just being a boomer here. But I that's all I think when I see this. I just think a young kid with a ton of money that's poorly spent on bad architecture, who knows nothing about the world, who makes his money from playing video games. How am I supposed to feel about that other than wanting to shoot myself? Like, that's like the elite now. He's like that's the elite, the stars, the people who get best paid. He plays video games for a living to get rich, and he knows not a thing about anything that's ever happened outside of a fucking video game. It's over.
Yeah.
We're done here as a species. I mean, that's just really depressing.
Yeah.
Is it not? You don't seem to be depressed. You seem tickled by this.
Yeah, I'm very tickled. I wanted to bring this up too, because the right-wing critique of porn and video games is one of them is it makes you weak and it makes you stupid. And he's kind of the physical embodiment of a consumer of both.
Even though I'm a big critic of video games, porn and video games do neither of those things. They don't make you weak or stupid. They're just a waste of time. In my view. And I'm not even sure porn is a waste of time. And sometimes video games aren't a waste of time either. I'm not opposed to playing video games. In fact, I've played a few video games recently. My girlfriend's son is a big fan of Bloodborne and Elden Ring. So I've been playing those with him a little bit. No, it's simply that, especially with video games, so many people spend so much of their time doing it, and it's almost completely antisocial. So they are pretty much removed from society while they're doing it. And for many young men, that means 8, 10, 12 hours a day where they're doing something that is inherently alienating and isolating. And also, and this is a strange thing for me to say, I suppose, but it doesn't add up to anything. I'm not opposed to entertainment, of course, but it doesn't produce anything of value whatsoever, except for you pass time in sort of a pleasurable way. It's just not. I don't know. This makes me feel old, but I'm kind of going to stand on this hill here because I don't like it, and I think that the world I live in is worse for it. I would like to see young men do things that are creative, that are productive, that make stuff, that make me think. I'd like to see people who are curious about the world, who read, who want to know what's around the corner or what's around the world or what was in the past or what does this idea mean? Who's Mussolini? Why should, Am I talking past you? I feel like we have a major generational divide here.
Joel Schlossberg in the chat says they spend all that time playing because they have nothing better to do, not the other way around. Basically saying that young men are disenfranchised from meaningful work nowadays in a lot of ways. And yeah.
I think that's going a little far. There's plenty you can do as a 20-year-old guy.
Sure, true. Yeah.
Even if you're poor, even if you haven't gone to college, hello, we have the internet. That means anybody can do damn near anything. If you're curious about anything, you can find the answer to it on the internet immediately for free. If you want to start a business, if you want to start making money, go on the internet. People do it all the time. Doing e-commerce in all sorts of ways. No, I'm kind of done with that excuse. I understand that there aren't as many groovy jobs available to young men as there were when I was growing up. Although I want to say it's not that much worse. I mean, it was very, very hard. And actually, you know what? It was harder to do interesting work when I was growing up in the 70s, 80s, and 90s because the media was a complete monopoly. And if you wanted to say anything in public, if you wanted to have any kind of public presence, you had to get into mainstream media and go through mainstream media, legacy media. That means there were very few jobs and it was very difficult to have a public voice. Now anyone can, and you can even build yourself into a significant public voice that thousands of people listen to quite easily. And it happens all the time. There are YouTubers who have zero credentials, never went to college, but they get up in there and they start talking on YouTube. And next thing you know, they've got hundreds of thousands or millions of listeners, and they change the culture. They change the world. That's Tim Pool. Yeah. That's a whole bunch of people who've done that. So no, I don't buy it. And I think I want young men to do better.
Yeah. I want to talk about Twitter more in that Elon, I think, is doing good work. For anybody who's on Twitter, he might have banned Ye, but Ye kind of deserved it. It did expose that Elon is King Elon, and that there are no rules. It's just don't piss off the big guy. Fine. But have you looked at some of the accounts that are back?
Yeah, like who? Yeah.
Who are you thinking of? Bronze Age Pervert is back.
Yeah, I saw that.
The original. Laura Loomer's back. Roger Stone just got back today. And the big one, which liberals don't actually pay attention to Twitter. Liberals don't pay attention to anything. If they were paying attention, this would sound alarms. Andrew Anglin is back.
Oh wow! Yeah. Was he Stormfront or was
Daily
he
Stormer? The Daily
Stormer.
The most racist publication ever.
Yeah, outright, explicit, no joke, racist.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well,
yeah. Well, then
it's so racist that's like Hustler, in that race is like an aesthetic that just gets pushed to as far as it can possibly go.
Right. It's in your face racism. Yeah. Yeah. I watched an interview with Anglin years ago before he got canceled. Oh, you forgot one. Our friend James Lindsay.
Oh yeah, he's back. Yeah.
He's also back. Yeah. Although I noticed so far, at least, he's not saying "okay, groomer" much at all. He's chilled on that quite a bit. It seems like.
Yeah. Maybe that ship has sailed.
I sure hope so.
Being more nuanced with it.
I sure hope so. Yeah, because he was calling everybody groomer and called Ben Burgess a groomer. What? I mean, what? It's like utterly irrelevant. It's just a slur. That does seem to have passed, that trend.
Yeah.
Thank
and
God.
Now that everybody's back, I feel like they're all on their best behavior a little bit. Like,
yeah, I noticed that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We're glad we're back. Don't piss off Daddy Elon. Thanks.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, they have been defanged a bit. They're a bit chastened, I would say. These right-wing people on Twitter who are back, who have banned accounts, a little bit chastened.
Yeah.
A little bit afraid to speak up again. Yeah, which, God, I'm becoming so reactionary, man. I'm so conservative and boring and reactionary and a old man. Part of me is glad about that. Because I hated what they were saying. I mean, I hated the stuff they got banned for. I mean, I hated what they were saying. Of course, I want total freedom of speech. I am a free speech absolutist, but I'd rather they not call everyone in the world groomer. I'd rather they not spew nonsense racism everywhere. Yeah, it's just, so I'm kind of glad. It's nice. It's a nicer place to live now.
Yeah, no, I think it's natural. Not to call you old, but like, I'd be concerned if you didn't become a little curmudgeon-y.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm gonna share this. This is from Telegram, and this is from Milo's Telegram. Maybe I'll just share screen window. Yeah.
Is Milo back?
Milo is not back.
Oh,
unfortunately.
He was fun.
He was.
Milo was fine, and he wasn't really that racist anyway.
But yeah, this is right after he banned Ye. Elon Musk tweeted, Twitter is being fair when extremists on the far right and far left are simultaneously upset. Twitter aims to serve the center 80% of people who wish to learn, laugh, and engage in reasoned debate. Milo says this is nonsensical. It's at the edges of culture where you find all the learning, laughter, and excitement.
Boom.
Which is your thesis, essentially.
That's exactly right. Yeah. Which, Michael Malice loves to amplify my argument about that. He loves to cite me too, by the way, and quote me. Yeah, so that's nice. Milo, maybe he's been listening to me. Or maybe he's been listening to Malice mention me. I don't know. But yeah, that is absolutely correct. Of course, that is the thesis of Renegade History of the United States right there. That the outcasts, the outsiders, the marginal, the miscreants, the rebels, the slackers, the criminals, the prostitutes, drunks, and draft dodgers, those kinds of people are who make the kind of change that we appreciate the most. Change for freedom, personal freedom, individual freedom, the ability to do stuff that was previously illicit. It is absolutely those on the outside, those on the margins. Like, I guess, Kanye West now. I mean, an extremely wealthy, extremely famous man, but he is certainly culturally now a marginal figure. God, what is the future? Well, we're not supposed to talk about Kanye anymore. I am curious, like, where he'll end up now, because he's still a young guy. He's in his early 40s.
Yeah.
Isn't he? Mid 40s?
I
don't know. Yeah.
If you believe in prayer, anybody out there, I'd pray for him. Pray that he gets to see his children. I think that's the biggest thing for him to make him better.
I mean, good God, I hope he doesn't go to prison. That's all.
Yeah.
It's just, wow.
And that's how they get you if they can't get you anywhere else, is with taxes.
Oh, I know. I know. Yeah. Yeah. Terrible too. Yeah. All right. No more Kanye.
Yeah. One more thing. It's also super validating to like all the trolls that the most influential artist of all time is now part of your movement. Like everybody who was in TFW No GF.
Yeah.
Alex Moyer's documentary.
That's right. They got Kanye now.
Yeah. Are totally validated as an art movement.
That's true. That's true. Good for those guys, although I'm not a fan of one of them.
Yeah.
in TFW No GF, Cantbot is in there. And I don't know if I will still punch him in the face when I see him, but I still probably want to.
Can I make one of his criticisms to you in a much more kind way?
I mean, okay. I mean, his criticisms were complete nonsense, but sure, whatever.
Here's one. You talk about liking, and I've been curious about this for a while. You talk about liking pop culture in the abstract, but
Yeah.
like, what's a work of fiction that you really like? Like, can you name a specific work of fiction that you're really all about?
Like a novel?
Sure. A novel, movie.
Well, it's not really fiction. It's more of a memoir. This Boy's Life
Okay.
by Tobias Wolff. A movie was made out of it, starring Robert De Niro and what's his face, Leo DiCaprio. It's great. It's a coming of age story. I just read it. I relate to it quite a bit. It's about a guy who's dealing with a sort of sadistic stepfather and a very weak mother, and that's one. I mean, there's tons. I don't know why. And lots and lots of novels. I've said this to Connor Habib, and we're going to release that episode probably next week or soon anyway, that when I was a teenager and an early adult, I really loved gay male fiction.
Mm-hmm.
I think because gay men, they represent a lot that I relate to, in terms of being sensitive, vulnerable, sort of emotionally tuned in ways that straight men often aren't. And I also love the way that they deal with the shame of their sexuality and what the culture does to them. So there's a whole bunch of gay novels. Oh, Michael Cunningham, who wrote The Hours. And he also wrote another novel. I forget the name of it, but really beautiful, brilliant work. These are novels. Michael Cunningham. Everyone go read that.
Mm-hmm.
So why? What are you getting at?
Oh, well, Kant Bot it was a performance, but he kind of served you on that a little bit in that, like, in that interview, you talked about how much you like pop culture and how it's a good thing. And when you pressed him on what you like and what's the value of it, you said Breaking Bad, which in the interview, it sounded like you just throw away. You said, oh, I just like the most popular thing on television right now. And you're not really passionate about it.
Oh, yeah. Whereas what?
Kant Bot, in a very ironic display, very well done display, invented a whole system of thinking based off the novel Dune, where Dune is an allegory for Stalin, and Stalin is the only truth. So it looked like he was more informed and passionate. I know it was a giant joke, but
I didn't even know that's what he was doing.
That's part of the trolling. Yeah.
I know. I mean, I figured it out later that I didn't know that's exactly what he was doing, but I didn't know he was trolling me until the end of the interview. Mm-hmm. It's just juvenile and annoying, and it's disrespectful, and it's not cool. I mean, it's like it's playing a practical joke on somebody.
Yes.
You know, and I do this for a living. I mean, so this is my profession. It's not like I was fucking around and playing on the internet one day and some guy made fun of me. This is what I do. Mm-hmm. And no. He's gonna get punched in his face.
That's the thing about Ye as well, is when he was on Alex Jones, I thought he was very, very disrespectful to Alex Jones as a host.
He was.
And that if he was really smart, he would be working with these people a lot better and not just using it as a platform to cry for mommy.
You're gonna use any excuse to bring Kanye back into the conversation, aren't you?
Yeah. It's really, like, for a long ass time, just the news was so boring and so depressing, and like, oh, we're going closer to World War III again. And it just seems like somebody finally injected some fun into the world.
You just really don't want to talk about U.S. foreign policy, do you?
I don't want to talk about U.S. foreign policy, man. I'm way more informed about that canon than the other.
Yeah. I'm afraid we have to, sir, because I'm a responsible citizen, and I am here to deliver important information to the American people. That's why everyone tunes in, by the way.
Yeah. So with Twitter, the next day, Elon released the quote unquote Twitter files with journalist Matt Taibbi.
Yes.
Basically, the first round of files confirmed what we already suspected, that the Joe Biden campaign gave very specific tweets that they wanted censored, and Vijaya at Twitter took it upon herself to take care of those tweets. Just basically stuff that we already knew. But the real story is this guy, Jim Baker, happened to be the person at Twitter sort of curating these files and how they got leaked to the journalists. Who is James Baker?
Former FBI. What was his title at the FBI?
Oh, I got it up here. He was
Doesn't matter, but he was big in the FBI.
Yeah, general counsel, deputy.
Oh, right. I'm sorry. That's right. General. He was the lawyer for the FBI.
Yeah.
And after that, he became general counsel or whatever for Twitter.
Yes.
Now, the thing is, Matt Taibbi and Barry Weiss, who for some reason Elon Musk selected to disseminate the Twitter files. There's an eye roll there for those listening. I like Matt Taibbi. I'll leave it at that. But they were both, especially Barry Weiss, which is not surprising to me, just shocked that an FBI guy was working at Twitter. Well, we've known this for a long, long time, that Twitter and Facebook have been mobbed up by not just the FBI, but the CIA also for years, just inundated with ex-FBI and CIA operatives working for Facebook and Twitter and doing all of their censorship. So this is the story. And this is, I am shocked. I can't believe that all these liberals are saying, oh, it's a nothing burger. There's no clear, it's not the government never said, we're going to take you down if you don't censor these people. There's no direct censorship like that. How on earth is that not a direct violation of the First Amendment? The government, the federal government, through its operatives, is instructing social media companies who to censor and how to censor them. How is that not the federal government abrogating speech, free speech? How is that? This seems so obvious, but we're actually having to argue about this. What? I mean, what if they found out that the leading social media network in Russia had Vladimir Putin's former general counsel, the FSB's general counsel, on its staff running its censorship? Oh my goodness, there would be all sorts of headlines in all the newspapers about how totalitarian Russia is because of this. And I'd agree with them. And in fact, that's sort of true in Russia as well. It is true in Russia. RT, I mean, they have this whole very, elaborate system of state-sponsored, state-directed media. I've been on RT several times. I mean, it's a weird vibe there because it's controlled by the government. That is totalitarian, or at least authoritarian, but that's what we have here. I mean, the CIA and the FBI have been in charge of censorship at Twitter and Facebook. How is that not the government controlling speech?
Well, the Supreme Court case that says former FBI agents can't work at social media companies hasn't happened yet, so they get away with it.
Oh, it hasn't. Right, it hasn't gone to the Supreme Court yet.
Yeah,
they haven't ruled on it yet. Well, that's true, right? But they better soon rule on it. I'm assuming there will be many lawsuits. I mean, there are lots of. I'm not the only one, of course, who's upset about this and who see it the way that I do, and so I assume there will be lawsuits shortly. Yeah. And I'm sure they will end up in the Supreme Court. And who knows how this court will rule on that. But I mean, that's beyond an outrage. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I mean, that is state control of media. It is, right? I mean, what am I missing? The only thing you could say possibly is that they're ex-FBI and CIA agents. They're no longer in the employ of those agencies. But clearly, they're talking directly with people in their old houses, getting direction from the White House, getting direction from the State Department, getting the Defense Department, the CIA itself. What do you think?
No, it's obvious. As you said at the top of the show, the conspiracy theorists have been batting 1,000. And the instincts of your crazy tinfoil hat wearing friend who 5 years ago said, man, the FBI and CIA run everything on social media was right. He was right. Trust those instincts.
But the people are saying, oh, you know what? Even some friends of mine at Reason Magazine are saying it's a nothing burger.
Well, I'll say this: it's
boy,
the drop could have been done better. In that, like, I miss the WikiLeaks days where you just drop a terabyte of information and then journalists seep through it, and anybody can seep through all the actual documents and emails, you know, as opposed to this slow drip Twitter thread where you get a couple screenshots and you're like, oh, we might release more in a couple days. But yeah. And it's kind of a nothing burger because it's what we already suspected. You know, it's not like some of the other drops.
No. You and I suspected it.
Yeah.
And people in our media world sure suspected it. You know who didn't even know about it? Was Elon Musk. At least he claims that. He's like, oh my God, I didn't even know until, what was it, last Sunday?
He fired Jim Baker. Was it today? Oh, it was December 6th. So 2 days ago, he fired.
Yeah, he said it was Sunday. He said, I think it was Sunday. He said, or over the weekend, he said, I didn't know this was happening. You didn't know the FBI's former general counsel is on your staff directing censorship? What?
Mm-hmm.
Is Elon lying here? Do we think he's lying about that? He must have known. Mm-hmm. He must have known about the FBI and CIA's involvement in Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
What is that about?
I think he has to play dumb. See, there's two things going on here. I think he has to play dumb so people underestimate him and so he can exercise power more efficiently. I think that's happening a lot. It's hard to discern his motives. The reason why I brought up that tweet is where he's talking about wanting to enforce the center. There is a lot of dissident thought that really does piss off Elon. Yeah. And he's not going to be friendly to you. And if you are expressing dissident opinions on Elon Musk's servers, what do you think he's going to do with all that data? Should he have more power at some point, you know? And he might hand it off to the FBI and CIA if he doesn't like you. So I think he's trying to keep an inroad with powerful players in the government and in governments in general.
Yeah, that could be true. Mm-hmm. He did say something very disconcerting, I think just yesterday, that he strongly implied that Baker had deleted a lot of files, a lot of data. So we'll never know a lot of what was going on. But I'm sure Elon nonetheless still has, just imagine all the DMs he has access to, you know, and we're talking about government officials on there. We're talking about major celebrities on there. We're talking about very powerful and wealthy people. I'm sure have DM things that they don't want to be made public, but Elon could, I suppose, let it be known, at least that he's holding, and that's an immense amount of power.
Yeah.
An immense amount of power. Not, God, just imagine all the blackmail material he has access to. I mean, all the sexting on DMs on Twitter that goes on. Ooh, boy.
And dude, this is why we talk about shame so much. Whitney Webb was on Tom Woods, and you know, Tom Woods' show is only a half hour, so she couldn't talk too much. She had to really distill what she was talking about down to the basics. And the basics are the CIA and intelligence, and they learned this from the mafia. They control people through sexual blackmail. That's the real Epstein story. And yeah, Elon Musk must have a treasure trove of that stuff. And
treasure trove.
Yeah. Friend of the show, Eliza Blue, is constantly harping on Elon to get rid of some of the exploitative materials on there. And you know,
this thing that Eliza's been harping on for years, child pornography on Twitter. I mean,
I've never seen it. Yeah.
I've never seen anything even approaching that on Twitter, like even close to that on Twitter, except for the Balenciaga ad. But like, is that real? I mean, do we know that there's been child porn on Twitter?
Well,
how could that be?
I mean,
it's a public platform.
Yeah.
How could they get away with that?
She used her language kind of muddies the waters a little bit. I would say there's exploitative material. There's probably a lot of revenge porn, a lot of amateur footage of minors that is being used to exploit people, especially high school kids. Like from being in high school, when I was in high school and Twitter was around, I'm certain nudes and videos of sex acts were being shared amongst high schoolers.
Oh,
and I'm certain that has fallen into the wrong hands a lot of times and is being used by adults to exploit children.
Oh, I see.
On Twitter.
Okay. not things that were produced as child porn.
No, I don't think that's out there.
That can't be.
That's yeah.
Okay, well that's misrepresenting what's going on then.
She does use sensationalist language, and when people talk about human trafficking as well, she uses that language too, and it does muddy the waters on this really serious issue.
Yeah. We used to talk about human trafficking a lot, and we haven't talked about that much lately. It's a complete sham, and it's terrible what's going on. But let me just say that there still to this day is essentially zero evidence of there ever having been any sex slavery in this country. In other countries, sure, there's plenty of evidence in other countries, but I've done the research on this. Since the yellow scare of the early 20th century, when it was believed that all these white girls were being kidnapped by Chinese pimps and sold into sex slavery, there was not a shred of evidence for that ever happening. Still to this day, you can't find real, true evidence of someone who's been made into a sex slave in the United States. It just doesn't exist. I challenge anybody listening, anybody watching, please let me know. Send us an email if you can find any evidence of anybody clearly who was a sex slave in the United States.
Have you read the Iceberg Slim books and all the pimp literature?
No, but I know about it.
Yeah. Well, you know how the pimps say there's nobody out there selling pussy that doesn't want to be?
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, of course.
I could see that being true in America.
Yeah, right. I mean, that's what I understand. There are women like Eliza, although I don't know if she said she was enslaved, but she gets close to that. There are certainly women who are former sex workers who now say that they were coerced into it. But if they were adults, I want to see evidence of physical violence and threats of physical violence. That's the only thing that would constitute slavery. If your pimp is just mean to you, or if you're broke and you desperate for money, it doesn't count. It's still consensual and voluntary.
Damn, you draw a hard line on agency, on female agency.
What do you mean?
That you don't really spend too much time for people who make the argument, oh, I was emotionally manipulated, or
oh no, I have zero patience for that. Yeah, none. Do you want to be treated like adults or not?
Yeah.
Do women want to be treated like adults? Well, that's what adults are. They have agency, and as adults, unless again someone threatens them with violence or commits violence against them, they have agency, and they determine their destiny. Otherwise, we are talking about them as if they are children. Right? I did the thing, I sold sex because the pimp was mean to me, and because he said mean things to me, and I felt disempowered, then we're going to think of you as a child. That's we're going to treat you as a child. It's quite ironic that a lot of feminists and sort of post-feminists end up wanting women to be treated like children.
And this is where you've pointed this out, where the feminists have historically linked up with the religious right.
Yeah.
And they both see women as lacking agency, as something that needs to be protected.
Exactly. And they always grossly overestimate the power of the pimp. This is something that Maggie McNeil's always talking about. That they talk about the pimp as if he has some magical powers, No, he doesn't. By the way, most pimps are poor dudes who live in the hood, who have like zero social power outside their block. They tend not to be wealthy at all. And so these are not powerful people. No, they don't control women. They don't control prostitutes. Women are not forced into these things. Not at least in this country. There are, yes, in India and elsewhere, that does certainly happen with children.
Thailand, for sure. Yeah.
Oh yeah, no doubt about it. But I know about India, at least for a long time. I don't know if it's still there, but in Mumbai, there used to be this red light district that was, I think, a mile square, and it was surrounded by a barbed wire fence. Yeah. There's only one entrance to it, and it was full of children and boys, girls and boys, many of whom were eunuchs, were castrated for this because apparently that's a thing in India. Yeah, no, I mean, that's some slavery, and that is basically the worst thing that's happening in the world, for sure. But we don't have that here.
Yeah.
There's just no evidence of it.
Oh man, when Chris Hansen went to Thailand to film To Catch a Predator over there, and yeah, I know that shows entrapment, but like when he was in Thailand, he was just so depressed and defeated because just it's so much more brutal out there than it is anywhere else, and there's nothing he could do about it. Like the people were younger than he could ever imagine. Yeah, it was awful.
Yeah.
Okay, so tying all these things together, the Hunter Biden story.
Yes.
There's a New York Post story that basically, so Hunter Biden's story was suppressed back during the election in 2020 on Twitter. New York Post was censored. It was brought to light recently that the story was legit, everything was real, and the New York Post just put out an article saying that he was actually, some of the money that he was laundering went to biolabs in Ukraine.
Okay, so in February, when Russia launched its special military operation against Ukraine, Putin and the Russian government leadership said that one of the major reasons they did this was because the United States was helping Ukraine fund bioweapons laboratories inside Ukraine, which also might have included some nuclear weapon research as well. And they did not want bioweapons and nuclear weapons on their border. And the entire Western media said, yeah, right. Nonsense. Russian disinformation. Of course, Ukraine doesn't have bioweapons labs. This is nonsense. And then Victoria Nuland, a month or two later, kind of spilled the beans a little bit, said, oh, yeah, there are some research facilities and we're worried about them coming into Russian hands. So we're like, wait, what? Oh, but they're not for bioweapons. Then it turns out, go ahead.
But if Russia takes them over, they're definitely bioweapons, and we need to kill Russia for taking over our bioweapons labs.
For sure.
Yeah,
for sure. Yeah. Well, now we have these emails between Hunter Biden and these outfits, one of which is called Metabiota. Metabiota is a, I guess it's a pandemic, it's a bioweapons research firm. And they were operating in Ukraine, and there's emails between Hunter Biden and them in which they are saying, thank you for helping us, Hunter, bring Ukraine into the West and helping them maintain their independence from Russia. What does that mean? That means that the United States was doing exactly what Russia was accusing them of doing. And Hunter Biden and Joe Biden were behind it. People don't know this, but when Joe Biden was vice president, his major brief was with Ukraine. That was, I think he spent more time on Ukraine than any other issue. He was over there like every month for a while. And that's how he got his son hooked up with that job with Burisma. But this is what they were doing. Before the pandemic, before COVID-19, they were helping Ukraine establish these bioweapons research labs. And there are more than 30 of them. That's a lot of labs. None of this is disputed, by the way. These facts now are undisputed. 30 bioweapons labs inside Ukraine. Russia had a point. More than a point. This is amazing. Now, we also know that Metabiota and InQtel and Hunter Biden's outfit, whose name is escaping me now, were partners. What is InQtel? It is the venture capitalist firm that is run and owned by the Central Intelligence Agency. The other partner they had, so this is the CIA, this is Hunter Biden, this is Metabiota doing Ukraine research, bioweapons research in Ukraine. The other partner they had was Eco Health Alliance, who were using Tony Fauci's federal money to fund the Wuhan Institute on Virology.
Oh, real quick, tying this back to Twitter. Did you see
Yeah.
that Fauci's daughter was working for Twitter at the time?
Yeah, I've known that for a while. Yeah, she's
Yeah.
been an executive at Twitter for a long time.
Mhm.
But look at that. There's the whole world right there, all connected together. You got COVID, you got the Ukraine war, and you got Joe Biden all together, and the CIA. Boom. That's all you need to know. Those entities run the world. And they've been doing some very bad things, killing millions of people and sending us to World War III. It seems like a newsworthy thing. Seems like we might want to pay attention to this, spend some time on it. Has CNN reported on this? No. Except to deny it. Has the New York Times reported on this? No, except to deny it. The Washington Post ran a whole fact check on this a few months ago and said, no, it's all wrong because it's just not right. It's just not right. But we now know. We see the emails. We got them. We got that laptop. And we see what Hunter's been doing. And he's been doing it because his dad is Joe Biden.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. This should be the news story of the century. This is the biggest news story of this century that I'm aware of. I mean, this cabal, and it is a cabal, the conspiracy theorists are right, caused the pandemic that killed millions of people and provoked a war that could kill us all. There.
Yeah.
That's it. We're done.
Don't ask what kind of music, which is my favorite username I've ever read in my entire life. Asked, is there any Ukraine COVID link, or is it just Ukraine bioweapons? Sam Husseini, friend of the show, journalist, has made this whole thing very, very clear. COVID most likely came out of a bioweapons or I shouldn't say weapons, but bio research facility in Wuhan. And there were similar labs in Ukraine that Russia said were a threat, that were one of their main reasons for invading Ukraine in February. Because everything's so interconnected and kind of tangled, it's hard to get all the pieces straight here.
And then there's FTX.
Oh my God.
So FTX, we know, laundered millions and millions of dollars for Ukraine, sent a lot of money to Ukraine, to the government of Ukraine, and also funded journalists to essentially suppress information about ivermectin. And I think also to suppress the Wuhan lab leak origin thesis. Also, I'm telling you, there's a very small number of people who run the world. And that's becoming very clear. And it makes sense if you think about it. I mean, in our country where you have, the most wealthy and educated people in the world, how many Americans know anything about politics? How many Americans know enough about politics to actually run anything? How many Americans have any actual political institutional power? It's a tiny number. And how many Americans have anything to do with determining U.S. foreign policy? I mean, we are talking about a softball team, basically. That number of people. Of course, it's a very small cabal, and they have every reason to be secretive because of what they're doing to us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Man, that's kind of why I played the Aiden Ross clip. Is like, also, that guy's old enough to vote,
Right. And that's who's going to save us.
Mm-hmm.
Is your generation of retards, frankly? I mean, come on.
Yeah. But yeah. Okay. Another reason why I brought up this Hunter Biden story, and Andrew Anglin, most famous internet Nazi ever, made some very good points about how the right wing dropped the ball on this. He said, from the beginning, I disavowed the way conservatives were covering the story. Bannon's Falun Gong guy posting all these crack and sex videos made no sense and actually made Joe Biden seem more sympathetic. Whether or not Joe Biden's son smoked cracks with Hooker is irrelevant. This is America. We all have people who we love who have fallen into drug addiction. Badgering an 80-year-old man over his son smoking crack is so counterintuitive that it seems malicious. I do wonder a lot about Steve Bannon and his State Department-funded Chinese cult. People on 4chan were going around, look at the picture of Hunter Biden having sex with an adult prostitute. This proves he has sex with children and family members. There was never any evidence of either claim. The relevance of the laptop has always been related to the pay-to-play stuff that was documented there by Tony Bobulinski. But that got buried under a mountain of private porn videos, something that was really just disgusting to share. And to all you conservatives out there, I know there's a lot of conservatives out there who are talking about Hunter Biden all the time, and we're railing about all the horrible stuff on there. You were the one who sought that out. You were the one who looked at that. You are the one who's a little fucked up in the head. You're the one who can describe what his penis looks like out of a police lineup of penises. So don't lecture us, man.
Yeah, confession through projection.
Yeah.
The right wing has been obsessed with sex, deviant sex, and they can't get enough of it. They can't get enough of watching it and talking about it and attacking it, and makes me think that they have some interesting attraction to deviant sex. Yes. However, it's not Steve Bannon. Bannon's been really good on this. In fact, I think he's probably the best on it in that he has been focused on the good, important elements of the Hunter Biden laptop since they found the Hunter Biden laptop. And it was basically Bannon's people who found it. Mm-hmm. So he's at the center of this too. No. And he in fact has said, you know, he's made the joke. He says, you come for the porn, but you stay for the national security information, you know? Mm-hmm. No, he's good. And then his investigative reporter, what's her name? Natalie Winter. She began this investigation, I think, mm-hmm. into the lab leak thesis. So no, they're solid on that. But yes, most, I think, rank and file Republicans and conservatives and right wingers are only interested in Hunter Biden's dick.
Yeah. And it does make Joe Biden look more sympathetic because we do all have somebody we love who has suffered from addiction. And berating an 80-year-old man that his son is a loser is not a good look, man. It's
right.
Yeah.
Right. No, but if your son and you helped establish a pandemic that's killed millions and are taking us to war, that's more important, and we should be concerned about that.
Yeah.
And yes, and they should be removed from any positions of power.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is just like, you'd be so much more effective, conservatives out there, if you just kept your eye on the ball, you know, if you just focused on what's really important here, instead of getting caught up in sex panics that are probably manufactured themselves by the CIA and FBI to distract you. With what was it? What was that giant data mining thing right before Q? Cambridge Analytica. Yeah. I'm certain all that has to do with what we see nowadays with Q and all that. Yeah.
I mean, classical conservatives and paleo conservatives and MAGA conservatives are so good on government overreach, on foreign policy, on economics, often not so much MAGA, but certainly a lot of classical conservatives are just so good in their critiques of political economy, liberalism as an ideology. They're so good, and they were doing so well for so many years, I thought, in waging these critiques that you just wouldn't hear anywhere else. But when it comes to cultural stuff, it's a catastrophe, in my view, and they have nothing of value to offer except hysteria and repression.
Here's another cultural thing that they might have something to offer on. Okay. This is in the description. The assisted suicide scandal going, well, not scandal, but assisted suicide in Canada.
Yes. Yeah. Let's talk about that. Yeah. Yeah. I just watched one of the Canadian government ads. Oh my God. I didn't realize what they were doing. I knew that they were offering help with euthanasia assistance. You can get some sort of assistance, I guess, to kill yourself by the Canadian government, which I'm not opposed to that, but they are absolutely encouraging it. They're encouraging it. And they've done this. I mean, they've done this with many people who are poor and disabled. I mean, just living in absolute misery, and who want to live. But the government, I think, because it's cheaper, right? Is this why, by the way, is this the motivation for the government for offering?
That's one of the things. That's one of the criticisms is, so you have socialized healthcare, And if the government is in charge of this stuff and they're cutting costs,
That's
maybe
it.
one thing they'll ask, hey, you know what? If you weren't alive, we wouldn't have to pay for your health care. So how about you kill yourself?
Oh,
Yeah.
that's it.
Mm-hmm.
This is the end result of socialized medicine.
Yeah, that's one of the critiques out there. Yeah.
Because dead people are way cheaper
Mm-hmm.
for the government. So much cheaper. Yeah, and killing you is a cheap thing too. I mean, you just take some pills.
Yeah.
It's very cheap to do. But keeping these people alive for years and years, oh my Lord, and funding their housing and their healthcare and their food and all that, very expensive.
Yeah.
This is some Soylent Green shit.
It is. It is. I'm a little sympathetic to their argument. Not the Canadian. Well, okay. If anybody's seen the South Park episode about Terry Schiavo,
yeah,
they made the argument that modern medicine has extended life way past where people normally would die. A lot of people who would be vegetables otherwise, or who would die of natural causes, end up, preserved as vegetables for months, or living to ages that are just not atypical for most of human history.
This is a big thing.
Yeah.
This is a big thing. George Will has been talking about this for the last few years, and he's the one who turned me onto this, made me think about it. George Will, who's like in his 80s or 90s now. Mm-hmm. So he's experiencing it. You know, our lifespan is longer, considerably longer. And what that means is, though, that, you know, after you hit 70 or 80 or 90, your body, you may not die, but your body is less and less comfortable. And more things break down that may not be fatal, but make your quality of life shit. And so he talks about the numbers on this, but there's just enormous industries devoted to just keeping us going, keeping us walking, keeping us upright, keeping us awake, you know, keeping us out of pain as much as possible, just maintaining this life that is not so good, because we live so long. So there's actually a good argument for living not so long.
Yeah.
I had never thought, but he was saying that this is going to be life for a huge number of people, certainly in the United States and in the West, because we have more and more old people who are in pain, who are suffering, but who aren't going to die anytime soon. So we just go and go and go, living lives that may not be worth living.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty sad.
Yeah, it is pretty sad. And there's no easy answers to this. The push for euthanasia and assisted suicide in Oregon was called the Death with Dignity movement.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the idea, is old people should have the choice to voluntarily end their life before life essentially becomes not worth living in their eyes.
Well, in this country, it's illegal to kill yourself.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know about in Canada, but it's illegal. You can't commit suicide. It's they can put you in prison for trying to kill yourself.
Mm-hmm. Is that? I know this has been like a huge issue amongst the states, that some states have tried to enact some laws.
Yeah, that's true. It may, in certain states, it may not be the case, but generally speaking, the state has said, and the Supreme Court has said, in fact, in Roe v. Wade, in that decision, it says the state has an interest in maintaining the life of its citizens.
Mm-hmm.
That's the decision in Roe v. Wade, the decision no one reads and everyone should. That is the scariest part of that decision. It's not so much about abortion. It's that the state declares in that decision and in other decisions its sovereignty over our bodies.
Mm-hmm.
It owns us. It owns your body. The United States government has declared that, and therefore it cannot allow you to kill yourself or even hurt yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So it's illegal to do that. Man, oh man.
Yeah. Back in the Renegade University days, you had the course with Tom Nickel on the instruction manual to dying.
Yeah.
And I think death anxiety is probably the biggest taboo in our culture. It's something that nobody talks about. And I think a lot of our problems in our culture are caused by the death anxiety that we don't talk about. And cultures like Japan, Asian cultures take care of their elderly much better. And especially cultures of the past had a much healthier way of dealing with death and accepting death and living with death all around them. That the United States is, this is something we keep talking about, is in a state of perpetual childhood. Nobody wants to admit that they're getting older. Nobody wants to take responsibility for anything. Everybody wants the free ride. And nobody looks at the stages of life, the last one being death, in a healthy way.
Yeah, no, I mean, the United States has been notorious on this for a long time. I think Europe too. You know, you go to Mexico, right? Day of the Dead is just part of it, but they're just much more comfortable with the concept of death, with the experience of death, with the history of death. They don't mind talking about it. And then, of course, Day of the Dead is this sort of intimate connection with the dead. And sort of you spend the day thinking about, looking at, talking about, feeling people who are dead. It seems to me much more healthy. And Freud, you know, said that the fear of death is what drives us primarily and drives us toward not great things. And it's not a coincidence that Freud was writing in Austria in the middle of the West, you know, the advanced capitalist West at the time. And I think he was in part responding to this inability of Westerners to think about death in a serious way. And yeah, I think we would all do much better. I think we'd have less anxiety, less stress, more peace, and more comfort in our own bodies and in our own minds if we were more comfortable talking about and thinking about and contemplating our own death. Very few of us have done that. Very few people I've ever met are actually comfortable with the idea of their own death.
Yeah. Oh man, when I've noticed this, like if you have a relative who's died, it's kind of a taboo to talk about that person because you bring up the pain of them no longer being here. Whereas in other cultures, they have an established practice of ancestor worship. And they're just way much more comfortable talking about them. And they still feel that human presence with them. And that makes people a lot more comfortable.
I mean, I guess it also probably gives you the feeling that you're going to live forever in that way and that people will be thinking about you and talking about you after you're dead.
Yeah.
And you'll have a presence, at least on the Day of the Dead, you know, if nothing else. But, you know, your picture will be there. People will be looking at you, thinking about you, talking about you. Yeah. I think it's lovely.
Yeah.
And I would love to change our culture toward that. Or we could just move to Mexico, which I think is the best thing to do.
Oh, yeah. I'm looking at real estate in Mexico and Somalia right now.
Oh, well, yeah. So we got an Unregistered Academy member who lives in Mogadishu, who is amazing and brilliant and a great guy. And he's talking up Mogadishu as the place to go now.
Yeah.
It's an anarchist paradise. It's true, by the way. He says it's true. It really is an anarchist paradise. You can start a business. There's no regulations whatsoever. I mean, you can just throw up a shingle and start selling stuff, and the government doesn't even know that you have a business.
Government?
Right. Because there is no government to speak of. Yeah. I like it. It's just these warlords with AK-47s running around that makes me a little concerned. But, you know, whatever. Yeah. What's a warlord?
No wonder we have, no wonder we have so much death anxiety in that we're so focused on the present and we never talk about the past ever, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. All right, man. We're not going to talk about death. We're going to talk about life at Unregistered Live. And if you want to join us, we hang out on Zoom after every Unreported on Thursday nights, right after Unreported. Go to patreon.com/unregistered. And if you join at any level, you can join the meeting, the clubhouse, the fun, which is where we're going right now.
Thanks. Yeah. See you on the other side.
Thanks, Michael. See you on the other side.